She thought she would marry a disabled millionaire. But a big surprise awaited her at the wedding. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's dive into today's story. Emma had always dreamed of a fairy tale wedding, but she never imagined it would happen like this. She thought she was going to marry a kind and gentle man, a millionaire who had been living with a disability for years. But little did she know, the wedding day would hold a big surprise that would change everything. Let's go back to where it all started. It all began when Emma first met Jason, a man who, despite his wealth, had always felt disconnected from the world. Jason had been a successful CEO before a tragic accident left him in a wheelchair. His life had been turned upside down, and though his fortune remained, it felt hollow. Emma, a young nurse, had been hired to care for him. At first, she didn't know who he was or how much money he had. She saw a man who needed help, and that's exactly what she offered. She tended to his needs with kindness and patience, and soon, a bond began to form. They would talk for hours as she helped him with his daily routines, and in the process, Emma began to see beyond the wheelchair and the wealth. She saw Jason for who he really was, a lonely man searching for purpose and connection. The more she cared for him, the more she understood his struggles. Jason, on the other hand, found himself drawn to Emma's warmth and sincerity. She never treated him like a millionaire or a man with power. She treated him like a human being, and that was something he hadn't experienced in a long time. One evening, as she helped him with his dinner, their eyes met, and for the first time, they shared a quiet, unspoken understanding. He could tell she was more than just a nurse. She was the person he had been waiting for, without even knowing it. But Emma had her own fears. She was just a nurse, with little in the way of wealth or status. She had dreams of her own dreams, of someday opening her own clinic or working for a charity. But marrying a man of Jason's caliber seemed out of reach. Still, the idea of a future with him, of something more than just a professional relationship, began to take root in her heart. As their connection grew, Jason made a decision. He wanted Emma to be more than just his nurse. He wanted her to be his partner. He asked her to marry him, and she was stunned. But what she didn't know was that Jason had been hiding a secret, one that would change everything. As the wedding day approached, Emma prepared for what she thought would be the happiest day of her life. She had no idea that her world was about to be flipped upside down in the most unexpected way. The morning of the wedding, Emma stood in front of the mirror, looking at herself in the wedding dress she had always dreamed of wearing. She thought back to the days when she first met Jason, to the shy man in the wheelchair who had captured her heart. Now, she was about to marry him. Little did she know, Jason had arranged something very special for her, a surprise that would leave her speechless. The day of the wedding arrived, and everything seemed perfect. The venue was gorgeous, the guests were excited, and Emma walked down the aisle with a smile that could light up the room. But as she stood before Jason, ready to say her vows, she noticed something. His eyes, filled with love and sincerity, were not the only thing that had changed. The surprise was about to unfold, and Emma had no idea what was coming next. As the days passed, Emma found herself more and more drawn to Jason, though she tried to keep her feelings in check. After all, she was just his nurse, hired to care for him, not to become emotionally attached. But it was hard to ignore the bond they were forming. Every day, as she helped him with his meals, assisted him with physical therapy, or simply sat by his side, she saw the man he once was, the ambitious CEO, full of life and purpose, and the man he had become after his accident, quiet, introspective, and searching for meaning. Emma never expected that in the process of caring for him, she would begin to care for him in ways she hadn't planned. She had always dreamed of a life filled with purpose, of making a difference in the world. But Jason's story made her question everything. Was this the life she wanted? Was it enough to just care for someone who needed her? Or was there something more? Every moment spent with Jason made her question her own dreams and how they might fit into his life. Jason, too, was beginning to feel the shift. The woman who had walked into his life as just a caregiver had become someone much more important. She was kind, compassionate, and had a warmth that he hadn't experienced in years. She made him feel alive in a way he hadn't felt since the accident. He could tell that Emma was a dreamer, someone who wanted more out of life than just survival, but he also knew she had her doubts. She wasn't from his world, and yet she had come to care for him with a sincerity that made him wonder if he was truly worthy of her love. One evening after dinner, as Emma sat beside him, she looked at him and said, "You know, when I first started taking care of you, I thought this would just be a job. But now, I don't know. There's something about you that's different. You're not just a patient. You're someone I want to be around, someone I want to see succeed. I believe in you, Jason." Her words touched him deeply, and for the first time he realized that Emma was the one person who had seen him for who he truly was, not the millionaire CEO, but the man behind the title, the man who longed for human connection and love. But Jason had a secret, one that he hadn't yet shared with Emma. He hadn't told her just how much he wanted to marry her, how much he needed her in his life. He had kept his feelings hidden, unsure of whether she would feel the same way. But as their connection deepened, he knew that he had to take a chance. Jason had never been afraid of risks in his business life, but this was different. This was about love. This was about trusting someone with his heart. So, one evening as they sat together, Jason took Emma's hand in his and said, "I've been thinking about this for a while now. You're not just my nurse. You're not just a person I rely on for help. You're someone I want to share my life with. I want you to be my partner in everything, my life, my future, and yes, even my heart. Emma, will you marry me?" The words hung in the air, and for a moment Emma was silent, shocked by the intensity of his confession. She had never expected this, but at the same time, a part of her knew this was coming. Jason had always been there for her, not just as a patient, but as a person she could trust. And now he was offering her his heart. She took a deep breath, trying to steady the whirlwind of emotions inside her. "Jason," she began, her voice soft but steady, "I never imagined this. I never imagined that I would fall for you like this, but somehow, I have. I care about you so much. Yes, I'll marry you." It was a quiet moment, a beautiful moment, but even as she said yes, she had no idea what was waiting for her. The surprise Jason had been planning was still to come. As the wedding day neared, Emma couldn't help but feel a mix of excitement and anxiety. She had said yes, but she was still trying to wrap her head around everything. She was about to marry a man who had been through so much, and yet, somehow, they had found a way to come together. It felt like a dream, but it also felt like a reality she had never expected. On the morning of the wedding, Emma stood in front of the mirror, gazing at her reflection. The dress was perfect, the venue was set, and everything was in place. She felt like the luckiest woman alive, but she also felt a sense of unease. Was she truly ready for this? Was she ready to step into a life so different from anything she had ever known? As she adjusted her veil, she caught a glimpse of Jason across the room, waiting for her. He looked at her with such love in his eyes that her doubts began to melt away. She smiled to herself, reminding herself that this was the man she had chosen to spend her life with. This was her future. Little did she know, the surprise Jason had planned for their wedding day would change everything. It wasn't the extravagant ceremony or the grand gesture that would take her by surprise. No, this was something much more unexpected, something that would challenge everything Emma thought she knew about love and the man she was about to marry. As the wedding day finally arrived, Emma felt a mixture of excitement and nerves. Everything was falling into place, but there was still a sense of uncertainty lingering in her heart. She had agreed to marry Jason, and in so many ways it felt like a dream come true, yet she couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, like there was more to the story than she knew. She stood before the mirror, adjusting her dress, and for a brief moment, she thought back to the very first day she met him. He had been so vulnerable, so different from the powerful CEO she had expected. And now she was about to marry him. She was about to marry the man who had once seemed so distant, and yet, through their shared moments of quiet connection, he had become everything to her. She took a deep breath, trying to calm the nervous flutter in her chest, and walked toward the wedding venue, her heart racing with anticipation. The venue was breathtaking. Flowers adorned every corner, soft music played in the background, and the guests were all seated, awaiting the moment when she would walk down the aisle. As she stepped out, the sight of Jason standing at the altar took her breath away. He looked so handsome in his tailored suit, his eyes filled with a warmth that spoke volumes. The moment their eyes met, everything else faded away. It felt like the world had stopped for just a few seconds, and in that silence, she knew without a doubt that this was where she was meant to be. But just as she took her first step toward him, something strange happened. A soft murmur spread across the room as the guests began to whisper, and Emma's heart skipped a beat. Jason was looking at her with a mix of love and something else, something that caught her completely off guard. It wasn't just the overwhelming emotions of the day. It was the realization that something unexpected was unfolding. As she reached the altar, she noticed that Jason had a slight smile on his face. But his eyes were shining with something deeper, something that hinted at a secret. He took her hands in his, and as the ceremony began, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this moment than she could see. She was lost in the beauty of the moment, the love they shared. But there was still a nagging question lingering in her mind. What was the big surprise Jason had planned? As the vows were exchanged, she could feel Jason's warmth, his sincerity, and his commitment to her. When it was finally her turn to speak, Emma took a deep breath and looked into his eyes. "Jason," she began, her voice steady but full of emotion. "When I first agreed to take care of you, I never imagined this. I never imagined that I would fall for you, but somehow, here I am. I care about you more than I could ever put into words, and I promise to spend the rest of my life by your side, no matter what comes." Her words were simple, but they carried the weight of everything she had felt over the past months. As she finished her vows, she looked at Jason, waiting for him to respond. He squeezed her hands, and with a quiet smile, he said, "I never imagined I would find someone like you, Emma. You've shown me what it means to truly live again, to love again, and I'm so grateful that you're here with me. I promise to cherish you, to honor you, and to love you for the rest of my life." The room was filled with soft smiles and quiet applause, and for a moment, Emma felt like she was in a bubble, lost in the love they shared. But as the ceremony continued, she noticed something that caught her attention. A small piece of paper slipped into Jason's hand. She had seen it earlier, but hadn't thought much of it. Now she couldn't help but wonder if it had something to do with the surprise he had mentioned. As the ceremony came to a close, and the minister announced them as husband and wife, Emma felt a wave of relief wash over her. She was married to the man she loved, the man who had transformed her life in ways she hadn't expected. But as they walked down the aisle together, hand in hand, Jason leaned down and whispered in her ear, "There's something I need to show you. It's the surprise I've been planning all along." Her heart raced as they walked toward the private room where they would take their first moments together as husband and wife. As soon as they entered, Jason handed her the piece of paper he had been holding. It was a letter that had been hidden for a reason because it was something Emma had never expected to read. It was a letter from Jason's late father, one that revealed a family secret, a legacy that Jason had kept hidden from everyone, including Emma. As she read the letter, her hands shook, and she couldn't believe what she was seeing. The truth was far more complicated than she had imagined, and the surprise Jason had planned was one that would change everything she thought she knew about him, their future, and the life they were about to build together. As Emma finished reading the letter, her hands trembled, and her heart pounded in her chest. She couldn't believe what she was seeing. It felt as though the ground beneath her feet had suddenly shifted. The letter, written by Jason's late father, revealed a shocking truth that she had never expected. Jason wasn't just a successful CEO with a tragic accident. No, he was the heir to an even larger fortune, one that had been kept hidden for years due to a family secret that only a select few knew about. The letter spoke of a trust that Jason had inherited, a legacy his father had intended to pass on to him after a specific event occurred. That event had just happened: Emma's marriage to Jason. The family had kept this trust hidden for so long, not because of the money itself, but because it came with certain obligations that Jason had struggled with ever since his father's death. The letter explained that Jason's father had set up this trust to ensure that his son would find someone truly worthy of the family's legacy, someone who could see beyond the wealth and power and embrace the responsibility that came with it. And now, Jason had to choose: continue living a life of quiet wealth or step up to fulfill the role his father had envisioned for him, with all the pressures and expectations that came with it. Emma felt a wave of confusion wash over her. She had married Jason because she loved him, not because of his money or family status. She had seen the man he truly was, the person he had become after the accident. The wealth and power were secondary to her. But now, it seemed as if everything had changed, as if their love story had suddenly become intertwined with obligations and decisions neither of them had expected. Jason stood behind her, waiting for her reaction, his expression unreadable. He had kept this secret from her because he didn't want her to feel pressured into a life that she hadn't signed up for. He knew Emma wasn't interested in wealth or status. She had made that clear from the start. But now, as he watched her read the letter, he realized that their lives were about to change forever, whether they were ready or not. "Emma," Jason said softly, his voice filled with uncertainty, "I never wanted you to be caught up in this. I never wanted to put this weight on your shoulders. I didn't think I was ready for this kind of responsibility, but after everything that's happened, I don't know if I can walk away from it." Emma slowly turned to face him, her heart aching as she saw the vulnerability in his eyes. "Jason," she began, her voice trembling, "this is a lot to take in. But none of this changes how I feel about you. I married you because of who you are, not because of your family's wealth. If you feel like you have to do this, then I'll be here, supporting you. But I need to know. I need to know that you're making this decision for yourself, not because of some legacy you feel obligated to carry." Jason looked at her for a long moment, his mind racing as he thought about the life he had built with Emma, the love they shared, and the future they could have together. It was never supposed to be about money or inheritance, but now it seemed as though he couldn't escape the weight of the past. "I don't know what to do," Jason admitted, his voice heavy with frustration. "I never asked for this. I wanted to be free of all these expectations, but I can't ignore the fact that this legacy could change everything for us." Emma reached out and took his hand, squeezing it gently. "Then let's figure it out together," she said, her eyes filled with determination. "If this is something you feel you have to do, then I'm with you. But don't lose sight of who you are in the process. We have each other, and that's what matters most." Jason looked at her, his heart swelling with gratitude. He had never felt more sure of anything in his life than he did in that moment. The pressure of the legacy, the weight of his father's expectations, seemed to fade in the face of Emma's unwavering support. He had always known she was the one, but now, more than ever, he realized that she was the key to his future, not the legacy of his family. "I don't know what the future holds," Jason said quietly, "but I know I want it with you. Whatever comes next, we'll face it together." And so, the two of them stood in that room, holding each other, knowing that the road ahead would not be easy, but confident that as long as they had each other, they could face anything. The journey that lay ahead would be one of discovery, of love, and of navigating the unexpected turns that life had in store for them. It wouldn't be easy, but they were ready for it, and together, they would rewrite their own story one chapter at a time. Days passed, and Emma and Jason found themselves deep in conversation about the future. They were both determined to figure out how they could move forward, with all the uncertainties that lay ahead. Emma was resolute in her decision to stand by Jason, no matter what, but the weight of his family's legacy still loomed over them. Jason had come to terms with the fact that he could not escape his family's expectations, but he also knew he had a choice. He could either embrace the legacy and all that came with it, or he could walk away and build something entirely new with Emma, without the pressure of a family fortune hanging over them. As the days passed, Jason became more and more focused on what he wanted from his life, rather than what he had been told he should want. He started working with Emma to develop a plan, one that would allow them to find their own path while still honoring the trust his father had set up for him. They would find a way to balance both worlds, the wealth and responsibility of his family's legacy and the love they shared. But they both knew it would take time, and the road would not be easy. Meanwhile, the couple spent more time together, planning their future, discovering new things about each other, and deepening their bond. It wasn't just about the material wealth anymore. It was about finding the right balance between ambition, love, and a sense of purpose. Emma realized that her initial doubts about their future had faded away as they began to create their own vision of life. She saw how much Jason had grown since their first meeting, how much he had learned about himself, and how he was willing to face the challenges ahead, not just for himself, but for the both of them. The first big test of their relationship came when Jason had to attend a business meeting for the first time since the wedding. The meeting was crucial for his family's company, and Jason knew that his presence was expected. Emma, although fully supportive of him, could feel the familiar tension rising in her chest as she prepared for the day. It wasn't about the wealth or the business. It was about stepping into a world that felt so foreign to her, a world she had never known, and one that Jason had spent years being a part of. As Jason left for the meeting, he turned to Emma, his hand brushing against hers. "I'll be thinking of you," he said softly. "We've got this." Emma smiled, feeling the warmth of his words. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she believed in them, and that belief was enough to keep her going. At the meeting, Jason felt the weight of his family's expectations press on him once again. He was back in the world of high-stakes decisions, power, and influence. But this time, something was different. He wasn't just there as a businessman. He was there as a husband, a partner, someone with a future that he was actively building with the woman he loved. The meeting itself went smoothly, but Jason couldn't shake the feeling that the future they were working toward was taking shape in small, quiet ways that no one else would see. As the meeting wrapped up, Jason made his way out, his mind filled with thoughts of Emma, of their future, and of the legacy he was choosing to create with her by his side. Later that evening, as they sat together, Jason looked at Emma with a sense of contentment. "Today was a turning point," he said quietly. "I felt like I was living in two worlds, the one my father built for me and the one we're building together. And for the first time, I felt like I was truly making a choice." Emma smiled softly, her heart swelling with pride for the man she loved. "You've always had the power to choose," she said. "It's just a matter of realizing it. And I'm here, no matter what path you take, because we're in this together." Jason reached for her hand, and they sat in silence for a moment, content in the knowledge that, no matter what challenges they faced, they had each other. The night wore on, and as they settled into bed, Emma felt a sense of peace she hadn't known before. They were no longer burdened by the weight of the past. Instead, they were building something new, something that was theirs alone, a life of love, purpose, and shared dreams. And as she drifted off to sleep, Emma knew one thing for certain. The future was wide open, and together, they would face whatever came their way. Weeks passed, and life for Emma and Jason slowly began to settle into a rhythm. They spent their days building their future together, balancing Jason's responsibilities with his family's company and the vision they had for their life as a couple. While Jason continued to navigate his legacy, Emma found herself becoming more involved in the community, working with local charities and pursuing her own dreams of making a difference. It wasn't always easy, and there were moments of tension, especially when it came to balancing the wealth and expectations of Jason's family with the life they wanted to build on their own terms. But despite the challenges, they both knew they were headed in the right direction. One evening, as they sat together in the living room of their cozy home, Emma turned to Jason, her eyes filled with curiosity. "Have you thought more about what you want to do with the trust?" she asked, her voice gentle but filled with concern. "I know it's a big decision, and I don't want you to feel pressured into anything. But whatever you choose, I'll be here, supporting you." Jason looked at her, his expression thoughtful. He had been thinking a lot about the trust lately, about the responsibilities that came with it, and about whether he wanted to take on the full weight of his family's legacy. It was a complicated decision, one that involved not just his future but Emma's as well. "I've thought about it a lot," Jason said, his voice steady. "I know it's not just about me anymore, it's about us. I want to make the right choice, but I also want to do it for the right reasons. I don't want to carry on this legacy because it's expected of me. I want to carry it forward because it's something I believe in, something that we can make our own." Emma smiled softly, her heart swelling with pride. She knew that Jason had been struggling with this decision for a long time, and it meant the world to her that he was finally beginning to see things in a new light. "Whatever you decide, I know it will be the right choice for both of us," she said, squeezing his hand. "You've already shown me that you're capable of making tough decisions and staying true to yourself. That's what matters most to me." Jason's gaze softened, and he leaned in to kiss her forehead, feeling a sense of relief that he hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time, he felt like he was finally ready to take control of his future, to embrace his legacy while staying true to who he was and what he wanted for his life with Emma. The following weeks were filled with discussions, meetings, and decisions. Jason made it clear to his family that he wasn't going to simply inherit everything without taking a more active role in the company. He wanted to modernize the family business, bring new ideas, and make it a force for good in the community. His family, though initially resistant, eventually came to respect his vision. They saw that Jason wasn't just interested in wealth or power, he was interested in making a real impact. Meanwhile, Emma continued to focus on her work with the local community, using her position to advocate for causes that were important to her. Together they made a great team, balancing their individual passions with their shared vision for the future. Then, one day, as Jason was wrapping up a meeting with the board of directors, he received a call from his lawyer. "Mr. Parker," the lawyer said, "there's been a development regarding the trust. It's time for the next step." Jason's heart skipped a beat as he listened to the details. The trust had been set up with a series of steps, and the next phase was about to begin. This would be the moment when Jason officially took control of the family's wealth and influence, but it would also require him to make a commitment that would change the course of his life. He glanced at Emma, who was sitting across the room, focused on a project of her own. He felt a mix of excitement and uncertainty as he realized that this was the moment when everything would change, when their dreams for the future would become reality. That evening, after the lawyer's call, Jason sat down with Emma. "There's something I need to tell you," he said, his voice serious. "The trust is ready for the next step. It's time for me to officially take control of everything." Emma looked at him, her eyes wide with curiosity. "What does that mean exactly?" she asked, her voice tinged with concern. Jason took a deep breath. "It means that everything I've been working toward, everything we've been planning for, is about to become real. I'll have the ability to shape the future of the family business, but I'll also be expected to make decisions that affect everyone. It's a big responsibility, and I need to know that I'm ready for it." Emma reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "You don't have to do this alone," she said, her voice steady and full of love. "We've been making decisions together from the start. Whatever happens, we're in this together." Jason smiled, feeling a sense of peace wash over him. With Emma by his side, he knew he could face anything that came his way. The next chapter of their lives was about to begin, and together they would write it. As they sat together that night, holding hands, they knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but with love, determination, and each other, they were ready to take on whatever came their way. As the weeks passed, the pressure of Jason's decision began to weigh heavily on him. He had taken control of the family business, but the expectations were enormous, and every move he made felt like it was under a microscope. The board members, his family, and even the employees were all waiting to see if he could live up to the legacy his father had built. Jason had worked hard to modernize the company, bringing in fresh ideas and pushing for social responsibility initiatives, but it wasn't easy. His family was used to the old ways of doing things, and they weren't exactly thrilled with the changes. Despite the challenges, Jason remained determined to forge his own path, but he couldn't do it alone. Emma had been there for him every step of the way, providing support, guidance, and a sense of calm when everything around him seemed chaotic. She had become his rock, his anchor in a sea of uncertainty. One evening, after a particularly difficult meeting with the board, Jason returned home exhausted, his mind racing with the weight of the decisions he had to make. As he entered the living room, he saw Emma sitting on the couch, reading a book. She looked up and smiled at him, but there was a trace of concern in her eyes. "How did the meeting go?" she asked, setting the book aside. Jason sighed and ran a hand through his hair. "It's getting harder, Emma. The more I try to push for change, the more resistance I get. They want things to stay the same, and I feel like I'm fighting an uphill battle." Emma stood up and walked over to him, placing a hand on his arm. "I know this isn't easy, but I believe in you. You're doing the right thing. Don't let them make you doubt yourself." Jason looked at her, his heart swelling with gratitude. She had always been there for him, reminding him of who he was and what he stood for, even when he felt lost in the chaos of the business world. "I don't know what I would do without you," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "You make me feel like I can actually do this." Emma smiled softly, her eyes filled with warmth. "You can do this, Jason. I know you can. And no matter what happens, we're in this together." As they stood there, holding each other, Jason realized just how much Emma had become a part of his world. She wasn't just his wife. She was his partner in every sense of the word. Together, they had faced so many challenges, and together, they would face whatever came next. But that night, something unexpected happened. Jason's phone buzzed on the table, interrupting their moment of quiet connection. He glanced at the screen and saw that it was a message from his lawyer. The message was short, but to the point. "We need to talk. It's urgent." Jason felt a knot tighten in his stomach. He had no idea what it could be about, but he could tell it was serious. "I'll be right back," he said to Emma, quickly grabbing his phone and stepping into the other room to call his lawyer. As the conversation unfolded, Jason's heart sank. His lawyer explained that there had been a sudden change in the family's trust, one that would have a direct impact on the future of the company and his role within it. Jason listened in disbelief as the lawyer explained that a clause in his father's will had been triggered, one that he had never known about. According to the will, if Jason did not meet certain conditions within the next 30 days, he would lose control of the company, and the family's wealth would be placed under the control of a distant relative. Jason hung up the phone, his mind spinning. He knew this was a game changer, a development that could undo everything he had worked for. He felt a mix of anger and frustration, but also a deep sense of determination. He couldn't let this happen, not after everything he and Emma had worked for. He walked back into the living room, where Emma was waiting for him. "What's going on?" she asked, sensing the change in his demeanor. Jason took a deep breath, trying to calm himself. "There's been a development," he said, his voice tense. "The trust. There's a clause I didn't know about. If I don't meet certain conditions within the next month, I'll lose control of the company. And the wealth, it'll be handed over to someone else." Emma's eyes widened in shock. "What does that mean for us? For everything we've worked for?" Jason looked at her, his heart heavy with the weight of the situation. "It means we have 30 days to make things right. I have to prove that I can lead the company in a way my father would have approved of, or everything could slip away." Emma stepped forward, her hand gently resting on his chest. "Then we fight. Together. You've already proven that you're capable of handling the pressure. This is just one more challenge, and we can handle it." Jason looked at her, his resolve hardening. "You're right. We've faced challenges before, and we'll face this one too. I'm not giving up, and neither should you." They stood there in silence for a moment, the gravity of the situation sinking in. But as they locked eyes, Jason knew that with Emma by his side, they could face anything. The future was uncertain, but one thing was clear. No matter what happened, they would face it together, and they would find a way to succeed. The next chapter of their journey had just begun, and Jason was ready to give everything he had to make sure their dream became a reality. The following days were filled with an overwhelming sense of urgency as Jason and Emma began to prepare for the 30-day challenge ahead. The clock was ticking, and every decision they made could have a significant impact on the future of the company, their dreams, and the life they had been building together. Jason was focused, determined to prove himself, but there was a sense of pressure that weighed on him. He knew the stakes were higher than ever, and the possibility of losing everything was a constant thought in his mind. But Emma was by his side, unwavering in her support. They worked tirelessly, meeting with the board, strategizing ways to prove Jason's leadership, and planning the next steps for the company's future. Emma, although not directly involved in the business, used her skills to help him stay grounded. She was the voice of reason, the person who kept him calm when the stress became too much to bear. Every evening, after long days of meetings and phone calls, they would sit together and talk about their hopes for the future, trying to remind each other why they were doing this in the first place. "We can do this," Emma said one evening, her hand resting on Jason's. "We've already come so far. You've already made a difference in the company, and now we just need to show them that you can lead it in the direction you've always wanted. We'll do it together." Jason looked at her, feeling a surge of gratitude. He knew she was right. They had already accomplished so much, and this last challenge was just another obstacle they could overcome. The following week, Jason and his team worked around the clock to implement changes to the company. He pushed forward with his vision of social responsibility, modernizing the business and bringing it in line with current trends. He knew it wouldn't be easy to convince everyone, but he was determined to prove that he was capable of leading in a way that honored his father's legacy while also making a positive impact on the world. As the deadline drew closer, Jason received mixed feedback from his family. Some were supportive of his vision, while others were more resistant, fearing that the changes might undermine the company's traditional values. But Jason didn't waver. He knew that this was the right path for the future. The pressure was immense, but he was more focused than ever. With Emma's support, he felt like he could tackle anything. On the 28th day, Jason called a final meeting with the board of directors. It was the moment of truth, the one that would determine whether he had succeeded in meeting the conditions of the trust. As he entered the boardroom, he could feel the weight of every pair of eyes on him. His family, his colleagues, and the board members all awaited his presentation. But Jason didn't let the nerves get the best of him. He had worked hard, and now it was time to show them what he could do. "Thank you all for being here," Jason began, his voice steady and confident. "I know these past few weeks have been challenging for all of us, but I believe we are on the right path. The changes I've implemented aren't just about making the company more profitable. They are about ensuring that we continue to grow and evolve in a way that benefits not only our shareholders but the communities we serve. We have a responsibility to do more than just succeed. We have a responsibility to make a positive impact." He paused, letting his words sink in. "This is a new era for our company, one that combines the strength of tradition with the innovations of the future. I am proud of what we've accomplished together, and I'm confident that the direction we're heading in is the right one. I am asking for your support, not just for me, but for the future of this company." Jason looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each board member, including his family. He could see the skepticism in some faces, but there was also a glimmer of respect in their eyes. It wasn't easy to break with tradition, but they could see the potential in what he was proposing. The meeting ended in a tense silence, but Jason knew he had done everything he could. The next day, Jason received a call from his lawyer. As he listened to the details, his heart raced. The terms of the trust had been met, and Jason had successfully passed the challenge. He had proven himself worthy of his father's legacy and had earned the right to continue leading the company. But as he hung up the phone, Jason couldn't help but feel a sense of relief mixed with a profound realization. He had done this not for the money, not for the power, but for Emma, for their future. When he shared the news with her, her eyes sparkled with joy, and they embraced, knowing that they had just taken another step toward building their dreams. "We did it," Emma whispered, her voice full of pride. "We did it together." Jason kissed her gently, feeling a sense of peace settle over him. They had faced so many challenges together, and now they had proven that their love and determination could overcome anything. The road ahead was still uncertain, but they were ready for whatever came next. Together, they had already achieved the impossible, and with each passing day, their bond grew stronger. They had proven that love, commitment, and hard work could change their lives, and the future was now theirs to shape. As the months passed, the changes that Jason had made to the family business began to take shape in ways that no one, not even his toughest critics, could deny. The company grew stronger, more connected to the community, and more socially responsible. Jason had proven that he was not just his father's heir but a leader in his own right, someone capable of modernizing the family legacy while keeping its core values intact. Emma stood by him every step of the way, her unwavering support becoming the foundation upon which their shared future was built. They worked side by side, each contributing in their own way, and with each passing day, they grew closer. Emma continued to focus on her community projects, using her position to advocate for causes she was passionate about, and Jason became more involved in philanthropic efforts, leveraging the company's success to make a meaningful difference in the world. Together, they were creating a life that was about more than just wealth and power. It was about making a positive impact on the world, about leaving a legacy that wasn't just built on profit but on compassion, love, and kindness. One evening, after a particularly long day of meetings and planning, Jason and Emma found themselves sitting on the balcony of their home, watching the sunset together. The world felt still, peaceful, and for the first time in a long while, Jason felt a deep sense of contentment. He turned to Emma, his heart full, and said, "I don't think I've ever been more certain of anything in my life than I am of this. We've built something beautiful, together. And the best part is, we're just getting started." Emma smiled, her eyes reflecting the soft glow of the setting sun. "I couldn't agree more. Every day with you feels like a new beginning. We've come so far, and I know the best is yet to come." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, each lost in their thoughts, but both knowing that they had found something rare true partnership, not just in love, but in life. The next chapter of their journey was unfolding before them, and the possibilities seemed endless. As they stood up and walked back inside, hand in hand, they knew that the road ahead would not always be smooth. There would be challenges, obstacles, and moments of doubt, but they were ready for whatever came their way. Together, they had already overcome so much, and with each other by their side, they knew they could face anything the future held. The legacy Jason had inherited from his father was no longer just about power and wealth. It was about love, commitment, and the shared dream of creating a future that was better for everyone. As Jason looked at Emma, he realized that his true inheritance wasn't the company, the fortune, or the title. It was the love they shared, the life they were building, and the journey they had ahead of them. And in that moment, he knew that no matter what the future held, he had everything he needed right there with him. Emma, his partner, his love, and the future they were shaping together. "We've already made our own legacy," Jason said softly, "and I'm so proud of it. Proud of you. Proud of us." Emma squeezed his hand, her heart full of love and hope for the future. "And we'll keep making it, every day, together." As they embraced, the world outside seemed to fade away, leaving only the quiet promise of a love that would last forever. A legacy built not on material wealth, but on something far more enduring: love, faith, and the belief that anything was possible as long as they had each other. And with that, they walked into the future, hand in hand, ready to face whatever came their way, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could create a life full of purpose, happiness, and endless possibility.